the facilitators or hear the panelists rather okay. So if you're making coffee in the background or the telly's on in the background, we'd love for you to go on to mute as well.
Sorry, I'm trying to put myself on mute. Okay.
Awesome. So if you've just joined us and you're not quite on mute yet, if you can jump to mute, that'd be fantastic. I am just going to let me just go to gallery view again. I'm just going to let a few people in that are still joining in the waiting room. I'd love for you to share where in the world you are coming in from. I think we've got quite an international audience, so do share where in the world you are right now. I'm obviously in the future. It's Thursday. It's 10 a.m. here. I think we probably have Antonia. You're probably even further into the future than I am, being in New Zealand. So you're a few hours ahead of me. I always love the different time zones that we've got. Wow, we have an amazing audience. Going to keep hitting all on this one. So I think some of you know why I arrange these events. Being learner number 34, it doesn't mean to say I don't like learning. I absolutely love learning, but I really love learning with other people. Being high woo, I much prefer to connect and learn with other people. So I noticed on Facebook there were lots of queries coming up about the ICF process and the benefits of being ICF accredited. I've been an ICF accredited coach prior to becoming a Gallup coach, but I've never been disciplined enough to always track my hours and do my mentoring hours and follow the ACC PCC framework. So it prompted me recently to do it, and some of the questions that you have, I also had. So I thought, well, what better opportunity than to get some experts out there that have different levels of experience to share their insights of what's worked for them and their tips and hints. So it's going to be a very relaxed format. I know those of you that have registered, we've got lots of different questions come in through the we'll get to. But as we go, if a question pops up for you, share it in chat. If you can put a Q in front of it to indicate that it's a question, I'll keep an eye on those and we'll ask them. And then towards the end, our panelists will just ask you, is this a 60-minute or is this a 90-minute? We're going to kind of go with the flow a little bit. We may be done within 60 minutes, but those of you that want to stay on longer, so I'm sure there will also be the opportunity to ask your question live and sort of interact and bounce different ideas around as well. But let's keep it interactive, share and chat. But if you can just stay on mute while we are hearing from our panelists, that will be absolutely fantastic. And just double check that there's anybody else in the waiting room. I think pretty much they're here. So I think we will kick off. I have to go to gallery view because when I go to speaker view, Marina, for some reason your image keeps your screen keeps coming up for some reason. Okay, so I'm actually going to hand it over to our panelists to introduce themselves. I always think you can do a much better job of, you're the experts on you, so I always think you could do a much better job of introducing yourself. But first, I'd love to thank Bonnie, Brent and Gavan for coming in and agreeing to be our panelists. Brent, given that you're the longest standing in our MCC, I thought I'd start with you first, sir, if you don't mind. Brent, I've been following a long time and had the absolute pleasure to meet at the Gallup Summits. And he's an expert that really, really helped me understand what my command means for me and reframe it in that courage piece. So Brent, thank you for that. But I'm going to hand over to you, sir, to introduce yourself.
Well, first of all, in Texas, we typically let the ladies go first. So I guess I am a dinosaur in that I've been tracking the ICF. So just a quick introduction. A lot of you, I do recognize your faces, your names. And so I've maybe met you at one of the Gallup summits or possibly online through LinkedIn, through Facebook. And delighted just to come and join the tribe, just to encourage one another. And so I guess just a quick overview is, 1993 is when I became a professional counselor. And I remember hearing about this International Coaching Federation in 1995. And I had just started my private practice, and I'd started dabbling in what is this thing called coaching. And I remember I really thought it was a scam. I really did, because I could have joined ICF way back then and like grandfather in, and I just didn't believe in it, and then I wound up starting to study positive psychology and then learning more about professional coaching. In fact, one little interesting tidbit is that I had started a business mastermind that was meeting inside my home. And we had invited a local executive coach, and Steve came to the mastermind. And this was probably 12 years ago, somewhere in there. And Steve was the very first person who introduced StrengthsFinder to me in that meeting. And I was so intrigued. I followed up with him, took him to lunch, and he said, Brent, have you heard of this coaching thing? And I'm a counselor. And he was like, have you ever thought about actually, going from counselor to coach? And I said, well, I have started thinking about that. Well, it turns out Steve, who was an engineer in his previous career life, was he was disengaged, and he actually started studying coaching with the founder of the International Coaching Federation, who is Thomas Leonard. And this is in 1995. And so he was actually mentored and coached. And so that was really my kind of introduction into the whole ICF. Eventually after I transitioned from counselor to coach, and I'd gotten like a 2-day training, which was great, but obviously not much. Then eventually, went on and took the Gallup certification, like all of you, many of you. And it was during that time that a professional coaching institute asked me to teach a strengths-based coaching course for them. And that's when I really had the lights come on that, wait a minute, ICF, I heard about them. And so I started thinking that's the gold standard of coaching, professional coaching. And even though I have Maximizer, believe it or not, at 34, coaching is the area I wanted to maximize in my life, because I believe God was calling me to that. So sure enough, I put myself through that process. And I'll share a little bit more about that process later. So that's a little bit of introduction for Brent O'Bannon.
Thank you, sir. And Brent, given that I would say probably all of the people that are on this call are either strengths coaches or strengths fans, what are your dominant talents?
Yeah, focus is number one. So it's all about, finding the purpose behind things. Number two is individualization. It is absolutely my coaching heart and coaching strength. Number three is achiever. So that's my entrepreneurial excellence. And number four is command. So it's more about that courageous communication. And number five is competition, which for me is about training strengths champions. So really championing strengths and training strengths champions around the world. And then number 6 is woo, 7 communication, 8 is relator, 9 is futuristic, and 10 is significance. So only one strategic thing in my top 10.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, Brent. We're absolutely thrilled to have you here with us and sharing your insights. Thank you. Gavan, are you happy if we go to you next?
Sure. Hello, everybody. It's so great to be here. And I am Zooming out of Sacramento, California. And I have been affiliated with the Strengths Coaching since 2011. I was introduced to this instrument as a facilitator and career coach for a group of unemployed professionals. And it was a program that I did for many years, and it just changed my life. Being introduced to StrengthsFinder was a very powerful turning point for me in recognizing that I could help people describe what their talents were and what their offerings were without having a title or a company name behind them. So this was a turning point for me. So I did facilitation and career coaching, and it wasn't until 2016 that I got to a point where I wanted more than what I had been doing as a career coach. How that all started as a career coach, backing up, I used to do recruitments, and I worked with government programs and helping people with their hiring. And then before that, I was a hiring manager. So I always had this love of helping people find out what their talents were and their strengths, and being able to translate that into opportunities. And it was only when I got to understanding my own StrengthsFinder that I recognized that now I had language to understand why I loved what I did. So my top 5 strengths are futuristic, so very much living in a world of possibility. My number 2 is maximizer. And so how that shows up for me is being able to recognize excellence in others. Number 3 is input. And I definitely rely heavily on my input as far as being resourceful and loving tools and geeking out on models. And so I use my input a lot in helping people get resourced and tooled up to take that next leap. And number 4, positivity. Number 5, strategic. And so that has helped me be a cheerleader for others and a partner change agent, as well as help people find the best path to get them where they need to go. And so I've been a career management consultant for many, many years. As I say, it was at 2016 that I was looking at getting my master's in career counseling. Someone had introduced coaching as a possibility. And when I looked into it, I thought, no, that's where I want to be. I want to be like helping people where they're at, being able to cast a vision to where they want to go and helping them there, as opposed to helping people fix what may have happened in the past. So that was the path I chose, and I've incorporated that as well as consulting and leadership coaching into my practice. And I partner with a lot of entities in, offering training, coaching, and consulting, as well as through my own practice. So that's how I got the start.
Beautiful, thank you. How long have you been a PCC accredited?
I was the last year to be able to count hours that had happened previously. So at the time that I took the program, I was a career coach for UC Davis, which is a public university here in California, University of California. And I was helping MBA students with their career coaching and career development. So I was able to use those hours, and then my previous hours working at a community college to apply to the PCC. So as soon as I finished my program, I had over 1,000 hours. Now that the program has changed, ICF, you have to take your hours from the time you finish the program to count those going forward, having graduated from that, and apply that to the designation you're going for. So those 500 hours, or those 1,000 hours, actually had 1,200 hours, don't count for anything. I had to start over, and since my program, but I am getting close to MCC status. So yeah, that'll be coming up within the next year.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing that, and welcome again. We're really pleased that we have you joining us. Bonnie, over to you, my friend, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. I'm calling from California, and this just reminded me I should really look at the past hours of coaching I've done so that I could apply to PCC. That's a very good reminder. So thank you for sharing that. My top 5, I have woo, activator, ideation, individualization, and strategic. So a lot of influencing and strategic themes in my background. And it totally made sense in the context of my previous experiences. So a bit about me, my background was actually in education. I was finishing my master's degree in education at UCLA, and I was in that space, but realized that those types of models that I learned for learning and how people best learn could be applied to any industry. So from that space, I actually jumped into 4 different industries. I founded a nonprofit organization while I was in grad school, and I ran that. And then I jumped into helping do business development for 2 tech startups. That was quite a lot, but from that place, after I handed the nonprofit over to a successor, I then went into the world of hospitality. I wanted to see how that works. So I became a franchisee of a few restaurants, different brands. And that was a very intense experience, but a lot of on the ground retail experience that I've gleaned from that to understand the psychology of human behavior in terms of, you know, consumer behavior on the ground. So that was a very interesting experience that I had. And I did that about 7 years ago. I still have a restaurant, but I don't talk about it too much. And I'm not there because I do coaching. And from that place, I started doing consulting for startups. So one of my clients, he was the former producer of like the World Economic Forum and these types of very high intense environments where I would get pulled in as a ER consultant almost and try to see all of the areas where they needed kind of like resuscitation of the 11th hour. So you could only imagine how much high stress and volatility that I was experiencing during those places. And then after that period of time, I had a team member at the time tell me about this ICF program. And honestly, it kind of like what maybe some of you are feeling. I felt a little like, you know, I have a lot of experience. I have a lot to bring to the table. I really don't need another, you know, accreditation or whatever to say that I'm a coach. I could just go out of the gate and say I'm a coach. Like I have so much I feel like to offer. So I will admittingly say that I was a little bit like turned off by this ICF, this coaching thing. And but you know, I decided like, hey, maybe this is something I need to learn. I need to explore a bit more. So I did. I just jumped in head on, very, very entrepreneurial style. And I was just really blown away by how effective the non-directive coaching model that ICF laid out for the coaches, and how much my clients were able to experience really radical transformation and ownership of their lives because of this model. So I saw that even though I come from a background of teaching, of consulting, of, you know, being this management owner and all of this, which is very one directional or very high intensity in terms of there's a problem, let's get to a solution, here's the solution. This other model, which is very exploratory, you have to let go of the reins of that part in your mind, of your brain, was very scary for me, to be honest. But I saw what it could do to people. So now I'm completely a believer and a fan. And, you know, I do have my consulting clients and I have that kind of methodology for them. But when it comes to coaching, the ICF model, it's a different framework in and of itself, which I really appreciate. So that's a little bit about my background. I became an ACC in 2017. And So that's a little bit about me. Thank you for letting me share.
Thanks, Bonnie. And yeah, I can hear you going, oh, I'm an ACC now, but yeah, if I go and look at all those hours I've done before, I can quickly go for my PCC. So that's great. Thank you all for introducing yourselves. I'm going to move now into the sort of Q&A piece. I think a lot of you know my background. Those of you that don't, I spent 12 years working for Verizon, both in the UK, and then they brought me here to Australia. And I know a majority of our audience are from the US, so I'm sure you know who Verizon are. If you don't, and you're in Australia, then or New Zealand, they're kind of like the Telstra equivalent, but global IT. And I used to sell IT, and I really wanted to migrate my career more into the learning and development space. And it was at that point that my mentor, the guy, Brian Bailey, who introduced me to Strengths, said, Charlotte, you really need to go and get some sort of qualification in facilitation, some sort of qualification in coaching. So I embarked down the ICF path through an organization called the Institute of Executive Coaching and Leadership, who predominantly run Asia Pac courses. They run a lot in Australia, Hong Kong, Singapore, but I think with the benefit of COVID, they now run virtual programs, but you'd have to be on, Australian time to do that. And after that, I then did my Gallup accreditation. So I did my level 1, level 2 through ICF first, and then did the Gallup one. I know the benefits to me, and you sort of indicated some of them there, Bonnie, about, that greater depth of understanding and helping somebody come to the solution themselves. I know the business benefits, or the benefits to me, that there are opportunities that I wouldn't have had. I'm on a number of coaching panels. I wouldn't have had those had I not been, an ICF accredited coach. Given that, you sort of spoke last, Bonnie, I'd love to hear more about what do you see being the personal benefits to you in addition to those that you've already outlined to your clients? What are the benefits to you of having headed down that ICF path?
Oh, I could name at least 10. I'll just name maybe three or four right now, as quickly as possible, because I really want to give space for Q&A and the other panelists. But one of the top level aspects of having ICF or becoming ICF credentialed is that you have a framework and structure to work with. And as I've explained before I was an entrepreneur, I was a teacher, and my background was in education. So much of my studies focused on how people learned and grew in their skill sets of learning. So during the 2 years of my master's program, I was required to document observational hours, conduct student teaching, work with a mentor teacher, write an 80-page thesis on my findings, and it was rigorous. But it provided assurance that I was following a model that would provide the best outcome for my students. And in the same way, ICF has really paved the way in providing that coach model globally. And understandably, people can simply work off the existing framework, that they can go to ICF online and find the framework there because that's public knowledge. But real transformation, even for the coach, happens when you turn that knowledge into action and get feedback for it. And ICF has a framework for what that could look like. So at a minimum, they require 100 hours of coach practice, 10 hours of mentor coaching, 60 hours of instructional time. So that's an educational component. It's a live workshop or reading time, recordings of your coaching, and passing their coach assessment test. So that's just like the baseline ACC level of what's required. So that's one very key aspect. There's an existing structure. Second component is branding. So they are the main credentialing body for the global coaching community. So branding is much easier to work off of an established group. If you know of Firehouse Subs, it's a franchise restaurant, and I've actually owned and operated one in the past, as I mentioned, as well as other brands while I was in the hospitality space. And I chose to go with an existing brand when starting out because I wasn't sure how to be a hospitality entrepreneur and also draw people to my store. So, that adage, if you build it, they will come. It really doesn't apply if you build it incorrectly or you build it in the wrong location. So to bypass this, it was better for me to learn from an existing system, as well as get the brand recognition that they've already built from themselves. And ICF is similar to that model, except there aren't any maybe delicious subs to go around, but that's another aspect. And the last thing that I will just point out is that the ICF has a governing body to help with accountability. So they have an ethics group where clients who have had a poor experience with an ICF professional, a coach, can contact headquarters to get issues resolved. And it seems kind of intimidating for coaches hearing this, because you're like, oh, well, I don't want to be blacklisted. I don't want to be called out if I do something wrong. It's actually a huge benefit, because personally, I've had clients come to me sharing that they were afraid of coaching with me due to poor experience that they've had in the past. And it took some time for us to establish trust and to get to a place where they were open to ICF models of coaching. All that to say, when there isn't accountability for coaches, both coaches and clients suffer. The clients suffer because they're given a poor or hurtful experience, and they don't have a resolution, right? And the coach continues to suffer because they are giving out a low quality of coaching because there's no accountability. So yeah, many coaching programs out there, but lacking a code of ethics and governing accountability group, it can create confusion and even dangerous situations, in my opinion.
Thank you, Bonnie. Gavan or Brent, would you like to add anything to that in terms of what you see the benefits to you and or your clients have been by being ICF credentialed?
Go ahead, Gavan.
Okay, thank you, Brent. I would have to say that the biggest benefit has been the recognition that this is a certification that has some meat to it. One of the biggest shocks I had after going through the program was recognizing that I've been calling myself a career coach for years and realized that I wasn't a coach, I was a consultant, and why my branding changed to career management consulting. And that distinction has really changed so much for me. The biggest piece of that was recognizing that as a career consultant or career management consultant, I tell people what I think they should do. I give them, clear directions or options in how they can navigate their path. And I think that because most people associate coaching with sports, that we look at coaches to be experts in something. And most of us are StrengthsFinder coach. And so in a sense, we are experts at StrengthsFinder. But when it comes to professional coaching, there really is a process and a model and a list of competencies that you have to become very familiar with when you are showing up as a professional coach. So that was really powerful for me to recognize that distinction. And coming forward, I would have to say that the ICF has gotten so much more credibility and attention as a coach than just having called myself a career coach or, having a master's or, saying that I'm Gallup certified. I think that the ICF, I'm always being, sought out by different companies to come on and partner with them as a professional coach. And that's because organizations, that aren't familiar with what coaching is, know that ICF is considered the gold standard. So I think it's a worthwhile investment, and happy to hear what the questions are about that path, because it is an investment.
Thank you.
And just maybe one addition, at least from my experience, a benefit of going through an ICF accredited coach training program is if you truly have passion and you love and you want to maximize, you want excellence in your coaching skills, then ICF is the gold standard. And so, like Gavan just said, there was 11, now there are 8 coaching competencies, and they have markers under each of those 8 competencies. And so the biggest growth for me, I went straight to PCC. So you don't have to go ACC, PCC, MCC. You can jump to those other areas if you have the training hours, the paid coaching hours, and you can demonstrate your skills on your recordings. That's the hardest part to me. So the biggest part was whenever we had to record our coaching sessions, and then we evaluate how we did on those coaching sessions with the competencies. And I remember my training program, we did that first of all with peers. So peer coaching, and then we would evaluate each other. Then from there, we had other higher level coaches that would give us feedback. Man, you talking about growth. When you see yourself and then you get feedback from other high level professional coaches, it's just amazing how much more depth that we listen, how much more powerful questions we ask, and how much more awareness and ahas and that our clients get, and they are able to come up with creative action steps. We don't tell them what the action steps are. That was the most powerful part. And it takes well, in one sense, it takes all the pressure off. I had to ask Brent anything call with someone today, and she was saying she feels this pressure, like I've got to make sure I add so much value, when I'm in that coaching session. And I can relate, but true coaching sees the client as an expert, and we are just the co-pilot. They are the pilot, and we are helping them to discover. And there's tools and resources and competencies that help us to help our client grow.
Beautiful. Thank you, Brent. You just mentioned about you jumped straight to the PCC. Can you tell us a little bit more about the path that you took to that? I know in your introduction you sort of mentioned how you got introduced to it, but what's the path that you took? How long has it taken? Maybe you could outline some of the challenges that you found on that path as well, because we know through the ICF there are different pathways. It can look confusing when you first sort of open up the website and have a look, but can you tell us a bit more about the path you took?
Yeah, so I had my PCC for 3 years before I was able to go from PCC to MCC, which was only, I don't know, a month ago, 2 months ago, and I just got this in the mail. So this is like one of those little credentials, for MCC, Master Certified Coach. So in my situation, I had plenty of coaching hours. So you have to have at least 500 paid hours. So I had plenty of hours. So that wasn't an issue for me. And I was able to track, all of those. I keep folders on all of my clients. So even if you didn't use the ICF Excel spreadsheet, if you keep notes and you have the information on your clients, then you can go back and get all of that information. And as I think it was Gavan that said, now you can only count paid hours from any time you got ICF training, which, by the way, if you got ICF training before Gallup, you could start counting client hours then. So I had ICF training a while back. So the next step for me was I had to get at least those 125 ICF training hours in those core competencies. So with Gallup accreditation, you may get, I think, around 34, 35. And not all of those even count for core competencies. So you need more coach specific training in order to get those 125 ICF. You have to be in a training school. And then, I had hired a mentor coach who did 10 hours of mentoring with me. And by the way, a true mentor coach in the ICF is only focused on your coaching skills. It's not growing your business. It's not on marketing. It's not on business development. It is helping you to grow your coaching competencies. So I would have coaching recordings. She would review those recordings. And that was, man, another phenomenal growth experience for me. And I chose someone, by the way, who she used to be an ICF past president. Judy Feld is her name. And she started the first coach training school in the University of Texas in Dallas. So she was close to me. We did it all virtual. But so she helped me to, okay, Brent, these are your 2 best recordings that I thought would pass at the PCC level. So, I was fortunate that both of them passed, and that's how I got at the PCC level.
And what did you see? So what were some of the challenges in the path that you were on, Brent? Were there any challenges?
Oh, of course. Yeah. Yeah. I remember one of the first challenges was I thought as a counselor, I already asked great open-ended questions. And I remember one of my first coaching courses, and I was doing a coaching with the instructor, who's ICF MCC instructor. And after our coaching, where I was coaching her, and, she was being the client in that particular session, she brought up how many closed-ended yes, no questions I had. And when I went back and listened to it, I'm like, are you kidding me? I cannot believe, I thought I was good at asking questions. And it started off this whole ability where I started practicing starting every question with what or how. And it had to be 8 words or less. Concise, powerful, open-ended questions. I started using it with my wife, my kids, my clients. I was just using it everywhere. And once you start doing that training, you will notice how many people ask stacked questions. They ask one question and then they rephrase it another way, and then they ask another question, and the client's going, where do I start? They're confused because we're confused with our own questions. So that was a challenge that I grew through. I would say the other is setting the client agenda and agreement in the beginning of the session, because so many clients, they love to talk, and they can be talking all over the place, right? And you're like, what is the goal? My focus once like, okay, what's the goal? What do you really want to, what's the target, And so I had to be more patient. I had to be better at dancing with my client, helping them to gain clarity so that they could find a powerful goal or agenda for that session. And so it's not just at the beginning of our coaching contract, but every session there's a coaching agreement. And so learning how, and also getting measures of success for that agenda. So helping them to flesh out what's the big win if we are able to help you with this topic in this session. It's helping them really to find out what's the internal motivation or the big why behind this particular agenda or goal. So that was a huge challenge. And I would say most coaches I've mentored, that is a huge challenge for them, is helping the client set that clear agenda. That's a couple. There's plenty more, believe me.
Beautiful, thank you. Any challenges in particular, Brent, around the path that you took? That seems to be the thing that people are finding the most confusing when we look at the ICF website. It's, well, if I'm going to be ACC, I can, and I've done my Gallup training, that might be 30 hours, or I could go that route. And then they talk about other routes that you can go. So it's a bit that people seem the most confused with. Were there any challenges you found or you've helped other coaches navigate when it comes to choosing the right path for them and how to navigate that? Any challenges that you would advise or solutions, you have helped people come up with around the path in particular?
Two challenges I've seen. One is either overconfidence in your coaching abilities, and you think you should, I can get PCC easy, or underconfidence in your abilities, and you think, I should just go for the ACC. Because I've mentor coached some people who were going for ACC when by the end of our mentor coaching, they were like, I can go for the PCC. And they were able to successfully do that. So you need realistic feedback and validation from, I believe, an ICF accredited mentor coach, and they'll help you see where you really are at with the coaching competencies. That's the key.
Okay, beautiful, thank you. And we'll come on to that in a moment. I know a question that we had is, how do you go about choosing a mentor coach? But we'll come on to that. I just want to explore this pathways a little bit more. Gavan, for you, you mentioned again the path you took was did I hear right that you went straight to the PCC? What were some of the challenges that you might have faced, or tips you can give around what path to choose? Anything in addition to whatever Brent and Bonnie have already said?
Yeah, so the way they've structured it now, you can't get to a PCC without going through the ACC first. I mean, most people, as I understand it, that now it's the hours that count after you complete your program. So it makes sense to get the ACC because you're only at 100 hours post-program, and then work towards the PCC. Like you definitely want that ACC behind your name to show that you're on the way. Don't just wait is what I would recommend, because it is an accomplishment. It shows that you have at least 100 hours of coach experience, and most of that paid, and you will also have been working with a mentor coach. Whether it's through the program that you've chosen, they may work that in, or, depending on the other path, you'll have to hire a mentor coach. And that mentor coach role is to help you really solidify what the competencies are, help hold up the mirror and, show you what is effective, missed opportunities, possible blind spots, and areas of growth and learning. I mean, to be a coach is always evolving. And so the minute you think that you've got it, something's going to be thrown your way, and you're going to realize, oh my goodness, we call those AFGOs, which is another freaking growth opportunity, AFGO. And that is where you're being thrown a situation that you don't know how to manage it. Maybe it's an ethics thing. Maybe it's a boundaries thing. Maybe it's a situation where this person might need therapy, and you're not equipped to do that. So whatever the situation is, having a mentor coach can help you with that. And also you'll begin to learn these different challenges as you deepen your coaching experience. So it is a leveling up. And I would say that what is so beautiful about an ICF accredited program is that they really get back to the basics, and how to listen, how to ask probing questions like the what and the how, as opposed to focusing on the why. And, you know, you can get to the why as you get more experienced. But really it is, you know, learning to put aside what our ideas are of how we need to show up, and just being open and curious and meeting people where they're at, and taking, you know, whatever they're giving to us in that coaching conversation to contract every time, as Brent said. So it takes, you know, skill and practice, and in the ICF program, whatever that might be, it gives you a really nice solid foundation to work with. And like what Brent was saying, you are working with triads, you're working with other people, people are observing you, they're constantly giving you feedback, you're getting practice in how to uncover opportunities for growth and learning. And, you know, this is really powerful. It's not something that, you know, you get a lot of time to spend on in other coaching situations. So
Beautiful, thank you. I'll open this up to whichever three of you would like to kind of answer this, but quite a few of our coaches on the call have done their Gallup accreditation. I've just posted in chat the, you know, sort of how many hours you get when you've done your Gallup accreditation, whether you've done, you know, the 4-day program, whether you've just done the 2 days, and then, you know, there's about the individual and then the following 2 days, whether you've also added on the advanced program onto there, they account for certain hours. But opening up to any of you three, what would be your recommendations to, if they've just done the Gallup piece now, what would be your recommendations to, you know, sort of move forward for that ACC beyond that, or PCC?
Well, you'd have to get the program. I'm sorry for jumping in, but you'd have to get the ICF training first before you even talk about ACC or PCC. So it would be finding a program that aligns with your beliefs, with your, you know, what you hope to help others with. There are a lot of wonderful programs out there. The one that I chose was through the University of California, Davis, and it very much stuck to the core competencies. It didn't have like a niche type of coaching, but there are a lot of coaching programs out there that can offer that. If you want to get into spiritual coaching or somatic coaching or and whatnot. So the strengths coaching is great because you have something to offer somebody, and that would be a great jumping off point. But that coach training, as far as I understand, is not going to be able to count towards your core competency hours or CEUs, because it happened before the ICF training. And I would love to hear different if somebody understands it differently. That's how I understand it.
I just wanted to mention, this question has been brought up because I was actually curious myself, as well as some folks, my clients. I've been corresponding with the ICF on this matter, and they said, as long as your Gallup coach training specifically provides a certificate saying you've taken the training, and within that certificate, it counts for a certain amount of core units. Those core units can go towards the core competency requirement of the ICF. So it's worth contacting support, and I can put the email address again in the chat, but if you scroll up in the chat, I put it in that, I put in the exact email address that you can ask and specifically mention that you're looking for core competency units if it fulfills. But I would say the best practice would be to contact Gallup first and ask them for that certificate. Then you can email that certificate to ICF. And then from there, they can tell you, okay, great, you have 14 that can count towards your hours. So I know it's a lot, it's very overwhelming. It was an overwhelming experience for me when I was doing it. And it's been an overwhelming experience for a lot of clients that I've known that wanted to get their certification or their credentialing. But yeah, that's a great way to get a little bit of clarity on that topic.
I agree, Bonnie. So yeah, Angela in that department, I've just stuck the email address in the chat as well. She's super helpful. So if I think, yes, I had the fortune of doing my ICF training first, that gave me all the core competencies, and then I did the Gallup. But still, if I want to go and register my PCC, I need to add all my hours together, and even the follow-up training. So every time we might attend a summit and the breakout sessions, or even the additional learning series that Gallup does, you need to be able to sort of track those hours. So if you email the team at Gallup, then they will send you a certificate. So I did it recently and went, okay, yeah, I've attended this summit, this training program, this learning series, and she sends a certificate for those that are eligible for the certificate. And otherwise, if it's just tracking your own, additional education hours, it's just a case of, being able to track those. So I think that was helpful, Bonnie. Brent, anything that you would add to that, given that you coach and mentor lots of other Gallup accredited coaches?
Yeah, to confirm what Bonnie was saying is my understanding as well, that you could take the ICF CEUs that you've gotten from your Gallup training, and you can add that to other ICF training. So the question was asked, this is my focus, going back to the original question of what do you do next? I would encourage you to find a coach training program, like Gavin was saying, that fits your values, your business aspirations, your coaching aspirations, your budget, your style. If you want in-person, do you want virtual? All of those factors. There are some good training companies out there, and there are some bad training companies out there. And so you really want to do your due diligence before you make a commitment. Some of the good ones I can vet is Coactive Coaching. So many of you probably have seen this book right here, Coactive Coaching. So this was a textbook that I had in my first level Coaching Essentials course. And the course, or the program that, of course, I'm biased because I teach there, but I also like it. I think it's really good for people who have a faith base. It's not that they preach at you or anything like that, but it's faith-based in the sense that they may use scripture, there may be prayer involved. Is a Professional Christian Coaching Institute. And everything is done virtual. It's got a great price. And so, I have several Gallup certified friends who have also gone through their program as well as I have. So find a good accreditation training program and stick with it. And that's where you're going to get either that 125 hours that you need for ACC, or the 200 hours that you're going to need for the PCC, I believe. I may have gotten that mixed up. 60 hours for your ACC ICF training, 125 for your PCC, and 200 plus hours. And this is all coach specific training. So Great. That's your next step.
Yeah, I think what was called the advanced coaching, so the 4 days, I think that only goes 40 core competency hours towards that 100 if you're going for the ACC. So it's you'd need to make up the others, or you do the path similar to I did, where you go through an ICF accredited program that gives you those, and then the Gallup is on top of that might then help you towards your PCC, for instance. So they're looking for the hours.
If you look on the ICF website, which we put in the chat, you'll see also there's several coaching programs that advertise on that site. And so those are some really good ones to start with. But there's hundreds. So, do your due diligence to pick a good program.
Yeah. And if there's anybody on this call that's done one and you recommend it, then feel free to post it in chat. I'll post the one that I did mine. But again, I know that they have a very Asia Pac specific focus, but they're incredibly diligent. Again, that kind of gold standard and they have amazing sort of alumni and continued sort of coaching practice and opportunities to be able to sort of share and develop, which is super useful as well. You mentioned one of the key things that we've spoken about and we've heard about, and the question that came up when people registered was, how might one go about choosing a mentor coach? Now, I know all three of you are, fit under that category of mentor coaches, but what would be your recommendations when you're looking for a mentor coach? Maybe we'll start with you, Brent, again.
Well, if strengths is really, really important to you, then you want a mentor coach that can weave in strengths into your mentor coaching. So I had one recent client who said, Brent, I was trying to decide between you as a mentor coach and one other person. And, both of us are MCCs, but he said the other person did not believe in strengths. And that was a non-negotiable for him. So he said, Brent, you have the ICF, understanding of competencies, and you understand strengths. And so that was his reasoning to choose me as a mentor coach. Finding, when I chose my mentor coach, I wanted somebody who understood the International Coaching Federation. And so I chose someone who used to be the past president. So, I wanted someone who knew the ins and the outs, the politics of the internal organization, as well as I knew that, they were a quality coach. So that's a couple ideas. Anything else, Gavin and Bonnie, what would you say?
Yeah, I think fit is important, and you need 10 mentor hours to continue with your ACC, and then as well as your PCC, or if you're trying to get your ACC and it's not included in the program. And you can go on ICF's website and find an ICF certified coach, and I recommend that you interview 3 of them at least and just see what feels right for you. And we do this a lot in the coaching world. We call them chemistry calls. You'll see coaches that offer like a free half an hour, or if you have a coaching contract, partnering with another entity, they may, provide 3 bios, and someone will interview 3 people just to determine fit. So it's really important, I think, to have that connection and that initial discussion, and to just ask your questions about how, what kinds of people do you like to work with? How many people have you mentored? What are the things that, you are known for as a coach? And people who have been coaching for a long time will be able to share that. And especially in the strengths world, I think understanding strengths and knowing the strengths of your mentor coach is going to be really powerful information for you in determining that.
So, Gavan, just to add on to that, so I know a number of people on the call have either been in, I run sessions that is what I call coaching and mentoring, but that's specifically typically more about I've got a proposal to write, and I'm not entirely sure how to start the proposal. So, I wear my coaching hat of asking great questions, but I also use my mentoring hat of, well, this is what I do, and here's my template, and, happy this. How would you define, 2 questions, how would you define more the mentoring from a point of view of this ICF pathway is the first question. The second question is, does it have to be face-to-face, as in, or over Zoom? Or I understand that part of those mentoring can be recorded, so they might listen to it. Can you define those 2 as well for us?
Yeah, so mentoring is very big, not so much in the US. Mentoring is part of the European mentoring coaching certification. I think that's what it's called, or the council. And so people might be familiar with that. With the ICF mentor coaching, really it is focused on those core competencies and making sure that you are utilizing those competencies in your coaching. And so, as Brent mentioned, they've gone from 11 to 8, but it's all about contracting and, being open and present and direct, and, staying within the ethical boundaries of coaching. And so that's what our job is as a mentor coach, is to help you, stay aligned within those core competencies. And do you have another question, or did that answer both? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, thank you. The other question was in line with, does it need to be recorded, or do they, all those 10 hours, do they need to be, face-to-face, physically or virtually?
No, they have to be recorded. We will listen to like a half an hour recording, or you can provide a transcript, and that's what would be submitted for consideration. So the coaching that we do through the mentoring process can be virtual, it could be by phone, or it could be face-to-face. I enjoy all three. Most of mine is by phone or virtual, obviously now with the pandemic. So
I was going to just mention real quick that, and that's a great question to ask when you interview your mentor coaches. Well, what is your process of how you do mentor coaching? For example, myself, I may take 1 to 2 sessions where we're evaluating that person and the competencies. And typically I will even have them coach me so that I can get a feel for where they're at in their abilities. And then we begin to talk about specific areas in the competencies that they need to grow in order to pass, and how they're going to use their strengths to do that. What other tools and techniques are going to help them to do that? And like Gavan's saying, they're getting recordings of clients. And I have my clients share those recordings right there in the coaching session, so they get real-time feedback on the session. So we'll stop that recording and we'll talk about, what about this option? What about this option? And, what was going through your mind? How did this, support a certain competency? And by the end of those mentor coaching hours, the goal is that you would have your best recording that you're going to be submitting to the ICF. And another quick thing is, you don't have to do all of your mentor coaching with one coach. So I've encouraged some people maybe to do 5 sessions with me, and they may do 5 sessions with someone who's totally different than me, so that they get, a variety of perspectives of coaching. So remember that.
And Brent, is that why it needs to be done over a 3-month period, so that, you can see a growth, or you can kind of check for that growth as well? Is there any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's part of ICF's requirement, because, many of us, we just want to tick the box, okay, I did it, give me my credential. And, ICF wants us to truly embody a coaching mindset, which is now the number 2 competency, embody a coaching mindset. And so if you've ever heard the book that was written by Sandler Training, so that's a sales company, and you can't teach a kid to ride a bike by going to a seminar. Now think about that. Just because you go to a course or read a book on coaching, do you think you know how to do coaching? This is one of the hardest, most nuanced skills that there are. And so you have to coach to get experience, and then get feedback on how you're coaching. That's how you go from that next level. One other quick thing I'll say is the MCC. I've had several people say, Brent, I submitted my recordings and either both of them did not get approved. I can tell you, when I submitted mine, one of them passed, one of them did not. So I had, a certain period of time that I could turn in another recording. And so fortunately that one passed. But I had so many different recordings that I had done that I was prepared, because I already knew it was so hard. And I think that's true even at PCC and MCC level. So you need that in person, when I say in person, I mean virtual, that feedback from another, qualified mentor coach.
Beautiful. And one of the, just to build upon this, one of the challenges that I foresaw was that not all clients might want their session recorded and reviewed by somebody else, for instance. So, I've seen a lot of other coaches maybe do peer coaching of each other, and then, it might be complimentary, there's no money involved, and then use that as a recording and submitting it. Is that some of what you've seen happen, Brent, or not?
No. ICF is looking for real clients, not peer coaching. In fact, they are good at spotting you coach other coaches who are just playing the game. So you need a real client, and this client, you're having to use your skills, your competencies with that. So they're a stickler on that. And
Okay.
and the other quick thing about that is, like, strengths, this is the hardest thing. We have to be very careful that we don't insert strengths into a coaching session unless the client brings it up.
So that's an interesting thing, Brent. So, and I'd love to challenge that using my courageous command. I would say a number of the coaches that are on this call have been paying clients. So they're paying clients of mine. But say I was not, does it have to be paid? So, I coach other coaches and then you coach other coaches. So does those mentoring hours have to be paid, or can they still be pro bono? So, how is that different to what you're saying of you can't coach other coaches?
It could be a pro, if you're recording is like a pro bono recording and it's really a powerful, good recording, then go for it. You can submit that. I'm just saying, if
just say don't play the game, don't act it.
Yeah, I mean, it needs, and it's
I'm no good at that anyway.
It's preferable to find someone who is probably not a coach.
So what I'm hearing is what you're saying, the distinction is find an ICF certified mentor coach, as opposed to a peer that you're learning with. Don't use that as mentor coaching. Is that what the question was?
I think the question I was posing was to submit mentoring hours. So, like, if I was submitting to you, Gavan, a mentoring, a call for you to review, I could be coaching Beverly, for instance, and she's another coach, so that's okay. And what I'm hearing is that is okay as long as I'm actually coaching Beverly. It's not just Beverly and I playing along. So I know other groups that I'm part of, somebody will put a call out there and say, hey, anybody want to do some peer coaching that is legitimate peer coaching, so that they could submit that as their ads. Not that I'm going to Beverly, for instance, as my mentor coach. It's becoming to you as my mentor coach, but I'm submitting my call with Beverly or Marina as my call to be reviewed.
Yeah, I will say that in our program, the woman who was running it, she was an evaluator for ICF. And so we were able to submit our coaching calls between each other or a coaching client for review. And she did evaluate, our competencies in those calls. So there was no distinction, but that may have changed, is what I'm hearing from Brent. So definitely worth checking out.
Do you believe it's changed, Brent, or is that just your view?
On which piece? Because I got distracted.
On using another coach. So if I was to submit to you to be reviewed, my coaching with Beverly, who is another coach, sorry, Beverly, I'm just using you as an example here. Are you saying that ICF has said that's not okay, or that's just your opinion? That what I'm hearing from you is it's your opinion, but it shouldn't be as acting. It should be a legitimate coaching conversation.
So I was encouraged strongly by my ICF mentor coach to find clients for my recordings that were not coaches. I was strongly recommended to do that. So that it was more natural, it was more authentic, because we all know if we're a coach, it's a little easier for us to make it easier on our coach. And so you don't get to dance sometimes as much. So it's not a hard, fast written rule of don't do it, but be careful of that.
Okay, useful to know. A question came through in the chat of, are mentor coaches paid? My view on that is absolutely they're paid. So I know that Brent and Gavan would certainly charge. Bonnie, you do mentor coaching as well?
Yeah, it's important to note that you can only mentor coach, or you can only be paired with the mentor coach, I believe, the same level or higher than you. So I cannot try to mentor someone who's trying to get their MCC, but I can mentor people who are looking for ACC mentor hours. And the coach that's also on our team, she is a PCC, so she can mentor ACC, those looking for ACC as well as PCC. Charlotte, is it okay if I just share something quick, like a share screen? Because at a certain point, just so that I could clearly show kind of a big picture overview of what might be required. Because I feel that
sure,
there's a lot of these little pieces everywhere, and it's just a really overwhelming experience, I think.
Go for it, Bonnie, and then we'll just sort of dance back to some of the questions on the mentoring coaching that come through.
It'll be really quick. So hopefully you can see that. So here's an example of what a layout could look like. So the ICF, there's requirements of certain things for the ICF. So 60 hours is what you need of instructional time. So this is where you're kind of in a more of a classroom setting or reading at home setting. The program that I run is 70 hours just for, whatever, extra hours so that you can learn some more. But 60 hours is the minimum for the ACC. Then 10 hours is required for mentor coaching component. And ideally, those mentor coaching hours should go after the, and from what I know from ICF, you can't even really have mentor coaching hours until you take the 60 hours and you're finished with that. And it makes sense because mentor coach hours really make sense when you're on the court. You're now doing coach practice. So coach practice is basically you are practicing with clients now, whether they are paid or pro bono, you are getting your feet wet, and then you have a mentor coach that can give you feedback. Mentor coaching can be all 10 hours individual one-on-one, or they can be in groups. So 7 of the 10 hours can be group components. And 3 hours out of those 10 hours need to be one-on-one. That is a requirement by the ICF. Coach practice hours, you actually need 100. I just put 30 because that's actually what just my program offers. So sorry, just ignore that part. You don't need a business development component. That's just ignore that. And then you do need a CKA assessment, not the study, that's ignore that, but you need to take this test and you need to submit your recordings at the end of the instructional 60, the 10 mentor coaching, and the 100 coach practice hours. If I'm leaving anything out, Brent or Gavan, please feel free to share.
And my understanding
hopefully
is
that's helpful.
For ACC, you only have to submit 1 recording. For PCC, it's 2. MCC, it's 2 recordings.
That is correct. So on this one specifically, this is just my program, and it's a little bit more intense. It's kind of intense, but it's just mainly because I want to make sure that the coaches are really getting a lot of not only feedback, but just really getting the hang of it and handholding. And that's something I really wished I had after I got my first instructional component. But you are correct. They only need to submit 1 recording.
Beautiful. Thank you.
And someone mentioned this earlier, and it's really convenient. Some coaching programs do offer the mentor coaching and helping you get your recordings And really the goal is to get that ACC as a part of their coaching program. And so that's a really convenient piece.
Yeah, that's actually why I made it very comprehensive. It just includes everything. So don't worry about all these pieces everywhere. Unless you want that, you want a la carte everywhere, that's okay.
Yeah.
But for at least, yeah, just comprehensive.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. And I think I use the term here in Australia, and I learned recently it's more of an Australian English term that it's horses for courses. It depends on, there's going to be certain horses. Again, if you're looking for a program that's got that component of faith, as Brent might have indicated, or you're looking for a program that really, is a la carte of, yes, I need the mentor and I need the practice and I want somebody to review it, you've got to find what's kind of right for you in the pathway. Some of the questions that are coming in, if we add on about the peer coaching or the sort of mentor coaching, what about group coaching? Where does that fit in, and how's that maybe different to just a straight one-on-one reviewing of the calls? Can either three of you add your viewpoints on that, the group coaching piece?
Yeah, so I'll jump in. Group coaching is not the same as mentor coaching. It's where you're coaching a group of people, maybe from the same organization or department, or in the example I gave earlier, it was unemployed professionals that had been laid off from their organizations, and most of them had been there, 20 plus years. And so, and it's helping facilitate a process where everybody is able to share where they're at, and you as the group coaching facilitator are helping people, move forward in their process. So this works really well within organizations, and you can come in as an external coach or an internal coach, and helping people, manage, a toxic culture or ineffective leadership or management, or even support them in their leadership development in managing those challenges as they're going on their journey. But group coaching is a very powerful skill to have. And so for those of you who are facilitators or trainers, this is a very easy transition once you get your foundation with the coaching program. Anything else to add, Brent? Or?
And it's important not to confuse group coaching with group mentor coaching, which Bonnie was just discussing. So you can get a certain amount of mentor coaching in a small group. You just can't get all of them. You can get some of them. You still have to have some of that one-on-one mentor coaching.
I think it's 7 hours. It can be group and then 3 one-on-one. Yeah. So beautiful. That is very different, than group coaching.
And the ICF, by the way, has just come out with the group coaching competencies. So be sure and check out the website and get that document, and you'll see I'll bet eventually there will be probably a specialty of ICF group coaching.
Beautiful. Yeah, I hope so.
Just before I open it up to people who might want to, verbalize and ask their questions, are there any other, if I was to ask this in a great open question, what other tips would you suggest, tips and resources would you suggest coaches look at or use, all three of you? What were your best tips or resources when you're thinking about the pathways?
One of the things is, is someone else about to speak? Go ahead.
Go ahead, Brent. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, sometimes we forget the obvious, and the coolest thing that as strengths coaches we know is that how we become excellent coaches is different from every person. And so when you learn how to aim your top 10 strengths into your coaching and into these 8 core competencies, it's a game changer. So I know I've created just a tool where literally you're writing your goals and your coaching competencies, and then you're writing in which strength are you aiming towards that particular ICF coaching competency. So that's just a real basic one that remember as a strengths coach.
Yeah.
Bonnie, what were you going to add?
Kind of piggybacking on Brent's point, I think it's really important. One thing that I do appreciate about ICF is that one of the core competencies focus on having a reflexive practice in your coaching. So you're always reflecting back on that experience of what it means to be a coach and how to develop yourself as a coach. And that is a requirement of the ICF. And that being said, I think when you are able to have your own personal, essentially, like really reduced down to your own personal values and your own kind of like your own mission statement down, it's going to clarify a lot on what type of clients you would really mesh with. Because you might be trained in a certain industry and you might be very good in that industry, but I'm sure after a while, even if you were to get an ICF credential and you wanted to become a coach working within that industry, it will really wear down on your soul. So I would highly recommend it'd be a good practice to take a step back before you just jump into, oh, I just want to, get all these credentials. I really want to hit the ground running and make my, drop my 9-to-5 and become a full-time coach. I really highly recommend taking a step back and really know yourself, explore yourself. And of course, strengths is part of that, right? But even more so, what you're actually valuing and if that even matches the type of clients you want to work with in the future. And sometimes that is a luxury. Not everyone can do that, right? Sometimes you just have to get what you can when you're first starting off with, but at least having that North Star will help you get clear. And that will make you very powerful when you show up to coach, because you're very confident in knowing who you want to connect with now. So that's something to keep in mind.
I've loved hearing some of the metaphors and analogies. I've loved hearing some of those. Gavan, anything that you would add to this just before I open up for people to sort of, ask their questions if they want?
I know that the ICF Coach Federation website is overwhelming. There's so much information, but it's great stuff. And I highly encourage you to check out what your local chapter is. And there are chapters all over, the globe, and most of the meetings are done virtually. So you don't have to live within 25 miles or 50 miles, but you can attend one of these meetings as a guest, and some of them are paid, or that they charge $15 or $20. I mean, depending on what country you're in, and just see what happens. A lot of times they'll cover the core competencies, or they'll have guest speakers come through, and it's a great way to see what ICF is all about, on top of all of the resources that are part of the Coach Federation website. So I encourage you to check those out.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. Now, I'd like to open it up to others that might have questions that they want to ask. So feel free to jump off mute and ask any one or all three of our awesome panelists a question. Might be things that I haven't already covered from the registrations, or things that are popping up for you, or something I've missed in chat.
Yeah, so I would.
Hi, Marina.
Okay. Hi. Yes, I started to ask about it in the chat, and you spoke a little bit about the group mentoring sessions. So I wanted to know on the practical level, like if I don't want to take like an entire program that offers both the one-on-one and the group sessions, how do I start because I know that Gallup are not offering right now, I think, the group option, and how to start to get that am I looking for a group? Am I looking for a coach who is like, how to get to do that?
Marina, one thing is, and I don't know if you or someone else put this into chat around your question, is so when Gallup is offering the mentor coaching sessions on, for like the virtual summit, that term mentor coaching is different than an ICF mentor coach. Okay?
Oh, no, it's they have two options. They have a regular one and they have ICF, and it's written that it can go towards the ICF specific ICF hours, and it have the competencies. It's about that.
And my encouragement, at least on, is, do enough mentor coaching with one coach, at least maybe 5 hours, and so that you have a long enough relationship where you can really grow instead of just doing one here and one there and, kind of popcorning. That's just a preference or recommendation.
Yeah, I think that taking at least, the 3 one-on-ones, I will do it with one coach, or I guess, but what about the group option, like the 7 hours they can take as a group, especially if I want it to be strengths based? So how to start looking for that?
I'm not aware of a group that is strengths based ICF mentor coaching at the moment.
Okay, so yeah, okay. Maybe I'll just try, I don't know, look with Gallup and see if there's enough people that want to do that, which maybe they will offer if it's possible, if there isn't other
Marina,
existing options.
Marina, I have a clarifying question. Are you specifically wanting a Gallup associated mentor coaching that still fulfills ICF, or do you want a separate ICF mentor coaching?
I'm sorry?
Are you wanting mentor coaching that must have a Gallup strengths component with the mentor coaching that fulfills ICF? Or do you just want ICF mentor coaching?
I would love it to be, because this is what I work with right now. I mean, this is my latest training and something that I'm really into right now. I would love the mentor coach to be also like related to the strengths approach, and to, I mean, not necessarily being like working for Gallup, but being associated with the strengths, with Clifton strengths. Yeah.
Totally get that, So, and there's plenty of ICF mentor coaches out there that have both the strengths component as well as the ICF component.
I think Brent and myself and Gavan, all 3, right?
And once I've got my PCC, then I will be as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't have capacity to do group coaching for, focus on strengths, or even group coaching at this point. I'm actually involved in another program, which is coach supervision, which is a whole other webinar. But I would say what a great opportunity for both Bonnie and Brent to be able to offer that, because we have so many people who are hungry for support. And if you can tie that into being an ICF mentor coach and the coaching hours, great. Wonderful. I think that's great. So want to hear more from you too.
Yeah, we can touch offline as well. If not myself or our team, I could try to find someone that could help you as well.
Jen, what was that? Jen Gilmore, you had a question. Do you want to ask your question? I'm not entirely sure what the EMCC is.
Yeah, so the EMCC is the European Mentor Coaching Council, I think it stands for. So it's basically the European equivalent, but it has a slightly broader scope in the sense of including mentoring as part of what they're sort of certifying you for. And yeah, I mean, I guess maybe your question is part of the answer in that, is it one of the disadvantages that it's less well known? But obviously in the US, I think ICF is particularly well branded. I suppose I'm asking the question in terms of the rest of the world, whether it's an option that's worth having a look at, because obviously there's different training providers that may or may not be able to provide accredited hours with them versus ICF. It's not necessarily the same market.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. EMCC is very well known anywhere outside of the US. And, part of that is coach supervision. And that's, the program that I was referring to. Coach supervision is just something that we're just talking about in ICF, community of practice, but it's not, ICF is not accrediting programs in helping people with that. So I would just say, depending on where you are, to see what people are, valuing, who are they hiring? Where are they looking for coaches? And, to look at both programs or, what their competencies are and, what's in alignment with your experience and what you're looking for. Yeah, but EMCC is where are you in the world?
Australia.
Oh, yeah. So I'm sure that, both are weighted pretty heavily in the coaching world. Yeah. And there's 30,000, I think, ICF members or coaches. I mean, it's, we're in a lot of countries, but EMCC as well. So definitely worth checking out.
Thanks.
Beautiful. Thanks for the question, Jen. Now we've come to the 90 minutes. People are welcome to stay on. I know my husband's just jumped on another call in the background, so people will start picking up his voice. But I thank you so much for joining. Thank you for the great questions. Thank you very much to our three amazing panelists for sort of sharing their insights and hopefully creating a bit of clarity. I will add the recording up to the website. But feel free if you want to stay. I'm hanging on for a little bit longer. I know it's later on in the evening for you in the US. So if any of our panelists want to hang around, if there are any other questions, that's great. But otherwise, if you need to go and have dinner, put kids to bed, relax, do whatever you need to do, I thank you so much for joining, and we really look forward to seeing you again at another session soon.
Thank you so much
thanks,
for having
Charlotte,
us.
for the opportunity to be here. And yeah, I'm available if anyone wants to email me or go to my website, brentobannon.com, if you have questions. And I do have my wife that is, I think, ready for me to
Go and snuggle up on the sofa with.
Yes.
Take care, everyone.
Yeah, take care. Thank you all so much. It was wonderful. Thank you, Charlotte, for the invitation, and nice to meet you, Brent and Bonnie. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gavan.
Bye.
Thanks, Brent.
It was so good, Charlotte.
Oh, good. Well, thanks, Bonnie. Thanks for joining, and thanks for answering some of the questions as we were going in chat. What I love about these things is you get more than one person on a call, and you're always going to get slightly differing views of, the path, the best path, the piece of advice. That's why I always like having different sort of, panelists. But I love that you were probably been through it more recently, so therefore maybe familiar with some of the, the pitfalls. And if you've been speaking with ICF recently, then that's useful. So, I'm part of some other groups, and like my question to, let me just stop recording.